Welcome back, Toddler Tribe. I have a very special episode for you today because I have a guest who I've been wanting to have on the show for a really long time. And for various reasons, we couldn't make it work. And yet we're in the same place at the same time at an early childhood education conference. And so welcome, Dr. Joanna.
Thank you. Thank you for having me. It has been a while, hasn't it?
Uh-huh. Yes.
Yeah.
Yes, always with the best of intentions, but so many deadlines. So here we are, and we finally get to have this conversation about risky play.
Yes.
This conference that just wrapped, the Vermont, hold on, I'll take that again. This conference that just wrapped, the Vermont Association Education of Young Children, the theme of the whole conference was play and creativity. And so you're an expert in this idea of allowing kids to use their bodies and their brains to explore without putting limitations on.
Yeah.
Tell us more.
All right. So risky play, it's been studied a lot by people who do such things. And thank you for calling me an expert. I appreciate that. Lots of people have done studies on it, and it's definitely a cultural shift. And I would say that most of the research comes out of Scandinavia, Scotland, Australia, New Zealand.
Yes. Those countries.
Yes, those countries. So I don't want to say they started it, but it's definitely, it's a thing we have to talk about because it just doesn't happen in the United States as often as it should.
Right.
And it comes from the idea of scholars make categories of risky play, but I like to say risky play is any play that's child-led. So adults can say, we're going to go to the park and there's a slide and swings and trees, but they get to choose what they do. The kiddos do. It's exciting.
Fun.
At least for the kids. It's not always exciting for grown-ups, but that's okay. And there needs to be a possibility of physical injury. That's the risk that you're taking. And so we often think of, obvious things like monkey bars. We think of things like a campfire. But also water play. Because there's a risk of physical injury.
Sure.
Using scissors is a risky play thing that I think a lot of people don't realize is risky play. But also climbing up the slide, swinging really high, going sledding, things we do all the time. And what we need to talk about is not necessarily the risk part, but the hazard part. The hazard is something that you don't see or the kid doesn't see that is going to hurt them. So broken glass, right? If they step on that, they're going to get hurt, that sort of thing. And so when we know the difference between a risk, which is a challenge that a child might choose to accept or not, and a hazard, which might be able to be mitigated, might not. That's how we know the difference between risk and hazard. But that's why risky play is often stopped, because people just think, oh, you're going to get hurt, stop.
Right. Oh, man, you've really got my brain thinking now. So I hear you talking about a lot of experiences that happen outside. And I think most people would jump to that, right? That risky play happens outside. You mentioned scissors. That's an indoor activity. What about our high energy kids who are jumping from couch to couch, or maybe exit the bathtub, not quite the way we'd expect them to? How often do you see risky physical movement, if not necessarily play, indoors?
Quite often.
Yeah.
The reason we associate it with outside, well, at least for me, is that because that's where all the best climbing trees are.
Okay, fair.
And I feel like outside just presents the ability to move your body in bigger ways.
Yes.
So yes, it is an inside thing. You often hear infant parents, when their kiddos are learning to pull up and climb, oh my gosh, I can't keep them climbing the coffee table. That's risky play.
That's right.
It's just different risky play than climbing up the slide or climbing a climbing wall or climbing up a boulder.
So do you remove the coffee table? What do you do?
Some parents do.
What do you recommend?
I think you should put padding under the coffee table. I think you could put padding on the coffee table. I think those little corner things are really important. You could also say, oh, we're not going to climb on the coffee table, but you can climb on the couch. Right? Or like maybe something that the fall height isn't as, or let's climb up these stairs.
Mm-hmm.
I used to say to my son, you can climb into bed. I would try to give him, give him like the opportunity they wanted, because he was a dining room table climber, and he would try to like play with the chandelier. And then they'll never forget, I'm like, gosh, it's awfully quiet. I turn around and there he is on top of the table, So, but yeah, just trying to give him other things to do, or trying to find like a similar sensory need, like my son, when he really would want to climb, I would say like, let's do big jumps. So I'd have him like, I'd hold his hands, he'd squat down, and then I would say 1, 2, 3, jump, and I'd kind of like lift him up to like make his jump higher, and that kind of gave him some of that same sensory input that he was looking for. But you're not going to be able to stop risky play. No. It's when, not if. Now, granted, I was not a huge risky player as a young child.
Same.
But that's just my personality. Mm-hmm. But of course, other risks were probably not thought about. I use scissors. Sure. I use a stapler.
Sure.
I drove in a car. So I still take risks. It's just not the same for adults.
So it's a natural part of childhood. Mm-hmm. Kids lean into it very organically.
Yes. No one teaches them how to do these crazy things.
What type of, like, I can understand why parents struggle, right? To where that line might be of, it's my job to keep you safe, which is one of the things I say and sing a lot of the time. It's my job to keep you safe. It keeps them like there with me. And then also teaching them the value of consistent effort and the resilient trying, so that you can cheer that success moment at the end. Like when you were doing your research, because you did your doctorate on this, how did you find, maybe not a line, but like a median?
Well, yes and no. Okay. So I guess a lot of it, I want to keep you safe. And I always say that to my students. Yes. My number one job is to keep you safe. My number two job is to help you have fun. And we always joke about like, is there a line, is there a difference between fun and safety? And I always say that parents and teachers it's not a free for all. So a parent or teacher can come up with the expectations that they're comfortable with. So a great example is that coffee table. Okay. Right. So we can say, and let's just be honest, like climbing on the coffee table doesn't really go away. They climb up for different reasons. For instance, my sister was a risky player, and she would climb up there and pretend to ski jump off while watching the Olympics. Right. So sure, we would set an expectation. Like if you want to climb up something and jump, we'll find something, but not this. We take our kids to the playgrounds, and it's a public space. And, if you want to climb up the slide, you need to look at the top and make sure there's no one coming down. If there is someone coming down, we don't stand at the bottom of the slide and wait for them to kick us. Yeah. We have a safety waiting zone. If we do climb up the slide, we kind of announce, I'm going to climb up the slide. And hopefully that means that your peers around you playing will know. And we may have to rehearse this over and over and over again. And in my role as a teacher, I call it the pre-teach. So I might talk about it at meeting before we even go outside. Yes. Or I might talk about it, I might sit around the slide and talk about, what we're going to do and how we're going to decide what a turn is, that kind of thing, depending on the age. Like, we're talking to caregivers of toddlers. Yes. And, so preschoolers get it a little bit more, but even 2-year-olds, can do it. And maybe it's like, not this slide's too steep. Maybe this slide, which is a little bit less. Wow. Yeah. And in my work, you all know, I call it forecasting, right? Same concept, right? Because we can forecast something and then we can postcast. We can go back and talk about it after it happened. And I reflect. Yeah, there we go. I always say, talk about like, so how did that feel, that turn taking? Or how did it feel when you were climbing up and you slid down. So that's kind of a rule, that an expectation that we started is if you climb up and then you slide down, you can go one more time. But the second time, then you're going to let someone else take a turn. So how did it feel when you felt you came down the second time? Like, is that too little of a turn? Is that too much? There was no one waiting behind you, so we let you go another time, those kinds of things. So
you're navigating reflection is way important. More than risky play.
Yeah.
Right. You're navigating social skills. You're navigating turn taking, even sequencing.
Yes.
And wondering about what will come first and then who will go next. And those are all very vital developmental skills that a lot of people call them soft skills, right? Because they're hard to measure and to quantify. Yeah, but they're really not. They're essential skills for your child's ability to manage their own emotions, their own body, and work with other people in small and large groups to do the same.
Yeah. Well, when I talk about risky play, I even say, like, yes, there's big body development, right? There's even fine motor development, scissors. But my personal philosophy of education for all children is social emotional skills and cognitive skills. Anything else is gravy.
Yeah.
And if you're not sure what that means, isn't everything better with a little bit of gravy? Right. So it's just the bonus. It's the frosting on the brownie.
Yeah.
And so I think that that's something important that risky play offers. And that, we talked a lot about it being outside and in a group. So in a group setting inside. Yeah. So they've learned how to do that turn taking outside.
Okay.
So now we're inside and you have the doll I want, but I know that turn taking means you get a turn for a little bit and then I get a turn for a little bit.
Yeah.
And those skills are transferable. And that's an important part of, like, the brain science and things that goes on is that's when kids are learning those transferable skills.
Absolutely.
And it comes down to risk management skills as well. Like, right. So I know that if I want to climb up the slide, I have to make sure no one's coming at me. So maybe that also means that if I'm watching someone on the monkey bars, I can't stand under them, right? Because right. So teaching one risk management skill is often transferable to another, and we'll see kids from classroom to classroom in my center.
Yeah.
They learned not to stand at the end of the slide as a 2-year-old, so now as a 3-year-old, they're like, no, don't stand there, and that's a great skill to have, right? So they're even starting to mitigate hazards before the teachers even start.
I do a little coaching.
Yes, I do coach, like when so we've talked about how we're gonna wait in the safety zone, we're gonna go do 2 turns, and I kind of stand there and coach them, and hey, you know what, you didn't go all the way up, you fell down 2 times, but then you knew to get back in line. And then the time they do make it up, it's like party. I have a special happy dance that I developed when my son was potty training that I've like just taken with me. Here we are 12 years later, I'm still doing the same happy dance. And then also with my coaching, and the encouragement that I give, I also have students waiting in the safety zone who are like chanting their friends' names, who are clapping when they get up there, who are like, you'll get it next time, giving tips. I always hold on to the edge,
Risky play is a team sport.
Yeah. There you go. Yeah. But it's not sports, so that's a whole nother discussion.
I'm listening to you talk and I'm thinking about one of the skills that I believe is essential to allow kids to experience, which is ownership of their natural choices and their natural consequences. So say a kiddo overestimates what they are capable of physically, right? They get on the monkey bars and they're confident they can make it over across all 6, and they get to 3 and they drop. How do you talk to them about that? Right? Because it didn't, their expectation was they would make it all the way.
Yeah.
Right. And so we want to raise kids who experience these moments of, oh, I didn't quite, so that when they do, it's a really valuable opportunity of intrinsic, I did that.
Yeah. Yeah. That can be tricky. And I would say you really kind of have to know your kiddo, whether it's your child or a child that you're taking care of. I take care of 15, 3, 4, and 5-year-olds, and they're all incredibly different people, tiny people, but people nonetheless. Yeah. And it just kind of depends on like their reaction. It depends on, like, have they gone all the way before and now they just didn't quite make it. So I usually ask, like, how are you feeling? I'm, again, social emotional, right? And emotional literacy. Or like, oh, I noticed your bottom lip is poking out. You're hunched. You're kind of skulking away. I want to check in with you. Do you want to do it now or later? And then usually it kind of comes down to, gosh, I remember when you wouldn't even climb the ladder. I remember the first time you transferred one to the other. Yes. Remember you got those legs swinging and you almost kicked me in the face? Because I'm a spotter. I like to be like underneath. It just makes me feel better. Yeah. I think it makes them more confident too. So I kind of think back to that. It's kind of that reflection, reflection piece. Yeah. Or, and
narrating their progress.
Yes.
Right? We as human beings get so focused on our outcome that we don't stop to look at the progress that we've made that gets us to that particular point.
Yeah.
Because there really is no end. We just keep going.
And I like to, I've always got observation materials on me so I can jot something down or take a picture. So I take lots of pictures. I might write like, the date and, AL, transferred to the second one. And so like I've got those records to look back on. So like in a group setting, but even with like just one child, I remember, just slipping and falling on a boardwalk in front of a bunch of people.
Okay.
Like we didn't think it would be risky.
Right.
But, he was like really upset and, talking to my kiddo through that. And, you can still walk, you haven't lost your ability to walk, just like you haven't lost your ability to try again on the monkey bars. And some kids, they will get up, they will dust themselves off and they will get back up there. They will, they'll even say like, if there's a line, can I have another turn? And I think that, you got to know who your kids are. And especially like in group settings, having that community is really important. And I think that starts in toddlerhood.
Yeah.
That when you're, they're still egocentric, but
of course
they are.
They are.
But, but I think that you can kind of start to coach them into thinking that. And, so I think that, like you said, narrating the process and celebrating the small wins and celebrating the try. That's a big thing. And I always talk about the yet. Like, yes, but not yet,
So let's shift for a second because this is really special, by the way, to have an early educator on the show, right? I have lots of guests and even parents as guests. Oh, fun. So let's shift to the parent perspective for a second because everything that you're saying I resonate with and vice versa because we speak ECE.
Yeah.
Right? Mm-hmm. For parents, it's very easy to fall into the fear-based mindset versus the skill-based mindset, right? You're not trained in what skills your child is practicing when they fall, but they are practicing skills. And so I hear a lot of when parents notice something that looks like risky, be careful, don't get hurt, wait, stop. All these imperative demand statements that are tinged with anxiety and cause the child to react. Sometimes they end up even just falling because of that.
Yeah.
So what can you share with parents who are listening who are like, oh my gosh, that's me. And it comes from a place of love because I really don't want to see my child hurt, to help them shift to understand that responding differently allows your child to build those resiliency skills.
Yeah. So some things that I try, and I'll come clean. I'll be very transparent. I say, be careful all the time. But then I usually catch myself and I'll say, be careful. I notice that there is and I think that's what parents could think about too.
Okay.
So, when I was raising my toddler's now 15, but I remember we always talked about things being like off limits rather than no, because we wanted no to be heard if we had to shout no or stop. Yeah. We wanted it to like be like, what was that weird thing that just happened? So it would kind of stop them.
Sure.
And I would say, gotta trust in your kids' abilities. You did talk about like a kid overestimating their ability. But since it's not a free-for-all and your kiddos play, especially if you know they're going to be doing some risky stuff, should be supervised.
Yes.
So there's a thing there, like you should be right there. And I always try to get away from be careful, because be careful doesn't mean anything. Be careful of what? A meteor? Lava.
That's fair. Yeah.
And like I don't live in a volcano place, so I could, maybe it is lava. I don't know. That would be scary. So I try to point out things and ask questions. And a lot of that, especially if we trust in our children's abilities, that will help build relationships.
Yeah.
And I think that when we shut things down right away, it kind of breaks the connection. And it's hard even to think about, like, well, I'm the child, I'm the mother. Of course there's a connection. But, it feels like it's like, remember the old days you could hang up the phone?
Yes. Yeah.
Right. Like that's the kind of thing I think about, right?
Yeah.
Is that it kind of does that. And, but kind of nurturing the play, pointing out what you notice that is kind of scaring you. I often would be like, oh, I noticed you've climbed up this boulder. You're getting ready to jump. My son loved to climb up on boulders and jump off. And I'm looking and I'm noticing that there's gravel underneath you. And gravel can hurt if you fall on it. So what do you think we should do? And he might, climb down and choose another boulder. I remember at a play date, there were like two little girls sitting underneath the boulder building a fairy house. And I'm like, wait, did you check the ground underneath you? Because I'm not sure if these friends want to be interrupted by your falling body. And he's like, well, I planned on going over them. And I'm like, did you ask them if that was okay first? And the girls like did not even realize my son was up there. He's like, they're like, no. So, I think awesome. Like, that pause, let's take a breath.
Yeah.
And then you mentioned the reaction to, we think about responding rather than reacting. So we respond with, even like a fall. Like I always was the queen of like, that was a surprise. Did it surprise you too?
Yeah.
And I can't remember the researcher, but it's a 17-second rule. So when your kiddo falls, count to 17 in your head. You can count super quick. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14. And like wait for them to react before you react.
Yes.
Because if a kiddo falls and all of a sudden you're like, oh no, are you hurt? And then like, of course they're going to start crying, because that's kind of scary to have like this person you love just all of a sudden on there. But, a lot of kids will just get up and be like, huh, and just go right back at what they're doing.
Yeah. You've talked about two things that I love. Okay. So the first is cognitive planning. And what that means, Joanna was talking about how by noticing the environment, right, we're planting a seed in this child's brain that they have to make a plan of how they're going to move their body.
Yes.
And that happens in here. And it's really important. Now, with tinies who are just like going for it, I'll often say, what's your plan?
Yes, I say that too.
And they stop and look at me because they didn't actually have one. And then they go, inside, maybe I should. And I love that, right? That with just a few little words, you can turn on your child's brain and get them thinking about what their next choice is going to be. Because the truth is, you're not always going to be there to guide their choices.
Yeah.
Right? Teaching them how to think, what could I do first? What could I do next? How do I get there safely?
Yeah.
That's really important stuff.
Yeah, I think about that with stick play a lot.
Yeah.
And I ask all the time, like, what's your plan with that big stick? That's a buddy stick. Is it, and that's when like you sneak into some academics, like, is that stick longer than your arm? And then I always have kids who like, my son did this a lot. He would like push it back. So it like came out the back of, it didn't touch, but it was like finger length, still like a nice try. And a lot of that, and I'll have kids who like, I want to whack something. I'm like, well, good. I'm glad you realize you want to whack something, but this, super long stick is not a good whacking stick. So instead of saying like, no, don't whack, which I guess if you want a category, I would call that dangerous tools. But I don't always do categories. So we find an appropriate stick, we find an appropriate thing to whack, we make a safety circle. So there's all that planning in there. Yeah. And then eventually, as they grow, we're talking about littles. So if you start planning with them, then they will be able to plan that out, and they will be able to say, I need to whack something. And I'm always happy when they want to whack a tree and not, they realize I can't not whack this person, but I can whack this tree. And that's always a nice thing. And I'll never forget, the girl was like, I'm so mad at that friend. I just want to whack them, but I know I'm not supposed to whack friends, so I'm going to whack a tree. And I'm like, let's go.
We've covered all of it, the emotional regulation, all of it. And I just want to come back quickly to that connection piece, because that's essential, right? The closing of that door, the hanging up of the phone that you were talking about, when a child is getting ready to take a risk, is when they actually need to feel the most loved, the most connected, the most supported, and have the most trust in their adult, just in case it doesn't go well.
Yeah.
And that grows with them over the course of their lifetime. And so we're talking about body play. But in a few years, your 2-year-old is going to be 5. Your 2-year-old is going to be 6. And they're going to come home with different types of things that they're thinking about taking risks about. And they're going to be social emotional. And they're going to be friend related and societal and school related. And you are going to want them to trust you just as much to have those conversations. So it starts now when they're in their tiny bodies, and the only way their tiny bodies know what to do is through physical movement.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think that, learning to do risky play and look for your hazards and all that, and trust your adult, starting that now, that's that cognitive or that social emotional piece that, they go and they want to take that social emotional risk in kindergarten, first grade. They know what it feels like if it fails, so they know how to get out of that.
And even learning to trust themselves. I think that is so, I'll say that to kids. I trust you to make this decision. Let's see what happens.
Yeah.
Because when they own that, that's a big win.
Yeah. And even like in the older grades, they talk a lot about like giving kids ownership of their learning, giving kids ownership of their assessment. So we know that giving ownership or having ownership of something is really important. And, we can learn that through risky play, and you own your failures and your successes. Yeah. And I think sometimes we're afraid to let our kids fail.
Yes.
We feel like maybe we failed as a parent. And I think too, like sometimes society is like, oh, your kid failed, or your kid came home from school with a broken wrist. You failed as a parent. And that stops a lot of parents from doing risky play. Right. And especially because media every day has got some terrible story about some poor parent, who's something has happened to their child and everyone's blaming them, and it might be their fault. But I don't think any parent wakes up and says, I'm going to be a junk parent today.
Of course not. Things happen.
Yeah. And I just think that, I don't know. I think about like the way my dad talks about how he played and how I played. And I think that.
Oh my gosh, you're making me think about my husband. This might be exaggerated at this point. I'm really not sure because it's like generationally removed. But he's like, we would break a couch every month because my dad and my brother and I would wrestle on them so much.
Well, my, parents don't, risky play. Riding a bike is risky play. And my husband knocked out his 2 front teeth when he was like 9. And so technically he's got false teeth. And I think that's one of the reasons that my son doesn't want to learn to ride a bike.
Oh, that story.
But so I think that, so I think we kind of do that sometimes to our kids. But I still, if he wanted to ride a bike, I'd let him still,
But when did you ever figure something out on the first try?
Exactly. And I always think of walking
Right.
Is like the first, like, so many new walkers, like they've got bumps and bruises and welts and,
yes.
And it's like drop off and they're like, yeah, I know they've got the bruise. They ran into the whatever, but we don't like tell our kids they can't learn to walk because
we encourage them. We get excited by it. Oh, you almost did it that time.
Yeah.
Right. That's the type of support we need to be giving kids, like, older kids even, who are using that risky play behavior.
And, if I cut myself once cooking, I don't not cook anymore.
Yeah.
Sometimes I wish I didn't have to cook anymore.
Yeah. But, I think as I'm sitting here thinking about it, there's two pieces. One, parents obviously do not want to see their kids hurt, right? It hurts us to see kids hurt.
And teachers don't either.
Teachers don't either. But also, then there's something to solve. Right? Mm-hmm. There's a reaction, there's tears, there's the big emotion. And so if we can avoid all of that, it feels better than having to lean into that moment. Mm-hmm. And, when I work with parents and educators who don't love tantrums, but I try to talk about leaning into the moment instead of resisting the moment. And so I think that's the other piece, right?
Yes.
If there are tears, if there is a scrape, if there is blood, we need to meet them where they are, not try to solve it.
Yeah. Well, I think when there's tears, when there's a scrape,
She's right.
We don't want blood, but let's face it, it happens. And I think, we talked about trust. And I think that as parents and caregivers, and I know caregivers listen to your podcast because I'm a caregiver and I listen to it. I don't have a parent of a toddler. I'm not a parent of a toddler anymore.
That's right.
But that trust versus mistrust, I think that's what we're getting into. And is that Erickson?
Say it again.
Trust versus mistrust.
Erickson.
Is that Erickson? I get all of my early childhood pioneers psychology mixed up because I don't use it every day. So and I think that, we talked about the supervision and the coaching and the reflection. That's building trust. Right. And when we take away the risky play, how are we going to build trust with our kids? How are they going to know that you're there to take care of them?
Yeah.
That you're there to help them. Kids get mad when I won't lift them up to the monkey bars, or I won't hold them as they go. And I'm like, but I trust that you know what your body can handle.
That's right.
And I'm going to be here with my arms outstretched. Mm-hmm. So if you do fall, I can help. It's not going to hurt as much. And I can tell you, I've been kicked in the head quite a few times because I'm watching and I'm so watching their face and I'm not watching their feet. But they're still able to take that risk and they know that I'm going to be okay with it. And they also know there's a limit. Joanna is going to let me climb up the slide, climb on top of the monkey bars and go through, but she's not going to let me climb to the very top of this structure and jump off because that is too risky. That is too hazardous, because, and they don't even try that because we give them the opportunities. I trust them to trust their bodies and know what's appropriate and what's not.
Dana Susskind did a lot of research on the belief gap.
Ooh, this sounds interesting.
It is. So there's a cognition gap, which we're all very aware of these days, right? Where we would expect peers to be and where we see them being.
Thank you, COVID.
Exactly. But the belief gap is also widening. And that is that children don't believe that they are capable of fill in the blank, learning the reading, doing the math, that the frustration tolerance is so low and the fear of failure is so high that they don't have that growth mindset to believe they can. And so I love that you are fostering that in little kids, in their physical bodies, and saying, I believe you can. Let's have you believe you can.
Mm-hmm. And I think, we all say I can do hard things. You can do hard things. So, your hard thing happens to be monkey bars, but you know what? Math is a hard thing too.
Yeah.
And I didn't know my times tables the very first time they were taught to me. In fact, I didn't even get good at sixes until I was teaching children how to multiply sixes. Put this away in your pocket. The trick is learning to skip count. So, we all can do 5, 10, 15, 20, right. 2, 4, 6, 8, 3, 6, 9, 12, 15. So once I taught that to kids, and I was like, oh my gosh, I can do this too. Right. So, and is it, because I didn't, maybe it is because I didn't think I could learn it, but maybe I didn't do enough risky play as a child. Oh my gosh. But I passed statistics. So, there's hope. But I think that, we talk about transferable skills.
Yeah.
Right. So, and I don't think that a kiddo who learned the monkey bars at 3 or 4 is necessarily going to sit down in math class and be like, I can do monkey bars. I can do this.
No.
But that whole, I can deal with failure. Yes. It's a growth mindset. Maybe I got one, I used to do flashcards a lot. I still do flashcards with some things. I got, last time I only got 9 flashcards right. This time I got 10.
Yeah.
And they'll learn how to find that success. And I think that's starting that when, I transferred to first monkey bar, I transferred to the second. I've climbed all the way up the stairs without falling, or all the way up the slide without slipping. Yeah.
Well, this has been an extraordinary conversation, and I have a couple of things for all of you who are listening. What, for me personally, this monkey bars, it's in my head, okay? So I have a video. It's about a 1-minute video of a toddler who believes she can, and I'm not going to spoil it for you. And if you reach out and ask to see that video, I will send it to you.
Send it to me, please.
This is my first taker.
Send it to me.
Because the determination, the focus you're going to watch and see in her, the way I create silence and allow, then the intentional words that I choose to use to check in with her, and then when we get to the end, what happens, it takes kind of everything we've talked about and just demonstrates it in a minute video. And then Joanna has stuff for you too. Right?
I've got a lot of stuff.
Yeah.
I have
a newsletter.
I have a newsletter, a monthly newsletter. I guess the best way to find that is to go to my website.
We'll have it linked right in the show notes. Just one click.
Yep. There's a subscription button on there.
Perfect.
And that also has some free resources. Yeah. And I will say that they're kind of toward teachers because that's who my main audience is. But I think there's nuggets in there for parents, especially the what do I call it? The inventory, the risky play inventory. It's got lists of things that promote risky play, and then some ideas for what they could, what you could add. Nice. So maybe take a look at where your toddler plays a lot or where your kiddos play a lot, and are these things there? Okay. What am I willing to add, or where can I find these things? And I'm not saying that every time you go to a play space, it needs to have every single thing on the list, but maybe you can vary what it is. So sometimes, it's water play, and that's a risky play, but maybe it's jumping in puddles as you're, or maybe you're looking for new places to climb, that sort of thing. So there's maybe some ideas in there to help you out with that. Nice. And I think that my newsletter comes out monthly, but I do webinars, and I put them on the newsletter, and they're on my website.
Great.
And again, they're really geared toward educators, but I think that when you sign up, if you put that in there, I'm a parent of a toddler,
sure,
or I'm a parent of a young child, then I can even add some more parental things into my webinar to kind of tailor it to your needs.
But you all know what I'm about to say. Parents, you are your child's first teacher. Okay. And that is one of the major premises of this show, that we speak to educators, and you are one. So please grab the resources that are available from Dr. Joanna. Make sure that you are feeling confident. Just pick one. If you're not, just start with one, and you've got this. And you also have a tribe. You have a village over here that is cheering you on. And if you need support, you know that you can reach out. Thank you so much for sitting with me.
Look, we're so exciting.
and having this. It's been a delight to have you on the show.
Thank you. I've enjoyed myself. Yeah.
And you know what to do, Toddler Tribe. Stay mindful and proactive until we transform the toddler years.